Hey artists, this is the second video lesson for Sketchpad IO. Now, if you've never used Sketchpad before, go back and watch my first video, Sketchpad Basics, because in this one I'm going to jump straight into some tips and tricks that you might want to try after you've already experimented with it a little bit. So, the first thing I want to show you is how you can import your own images into Sketchpad. You might be wondering how I got this super awesome gnome llama, and that's how I did it. So I'm going to start with a blank page first, which I go to New, select blank, and the red Create. I do want to save that. And when I go to the clip art symbol, you might have already noticed that, you remember there used to be this cow right here? I can still find the library of regular clip art by clicking on that, but there's also an option in red here to load your own image. So in order to do that, you will have to already saved a picture somewhere that you can load into Sketchpad. So I have on my Chromebook here in another tab, I've already found the Mount Vernon yellow jacket, and I've already saved it. But if you're not sure how to save on a Chromebook, I take my picture and I click it with 2 fingers on mine, and I select the option called Save Image As. Now mine's giving me an error message because I'm recording a video right now, but yours should go straight into your drive. So after you find the image you like and save it, you want to go to the red Load Your Own Image button, and it will open up your Google Drive if you're on a Chromebook. It might look a little bit different if you're on a different device, but I hope you can problem solve the best way to do it. And I'm going to select, you might have noticed I went to Recent. I think that's the easiest way to find the picture that you just saved. And you click on your image, and it opens it up. Now, just like in the first video, if I want to move or change the size of my picture, I have to make sure I'm on the select button. Sometimes it puts it on automatically. And then I can move it around, make it bigger or smaller, or rotate it, or whatever I want to do. So it really opens up a whole new possibility for making art. You could even import photos of your family if they are saved on a device or something like that. And you would be able to edit them and add to them and add words and do lots of different things. But I want to show you another tool. We're going to go back to the importing your photos in a minute, but I'm going to delete this for now. And first thing I want to do is make a little shape that I can color in. So I'm going to go back to my art tools. The picture changes, so don't always look for the paintbrush. It's always the one right underneath the select arrow. When I click on that and I click on the matching picture, that's how I get my art toolbox. That's where we found before, like pen and paintbrush and mirror brush and all of those. So I'm just going to draw something quickly with a paintbrush. I want it to be black, so I'm going to go to my color, go back to black, and I'm just doing a really simple heart for now. But this trick I'm going to show you works on fancier drawings too. I have to give a shout out to Ellie in 5th grade, Mrs. Humphrey's class, because she and I kind of figured this out together a couple weeks. So thanks for that, Ellie. But you can do something fancier than that later on. Now I'm going to go to the fill tool. Remember, we used that before to fill in the whole background. And the automatic thing when you click on that that's selected is called vector fill. There is a problem with vector fill though. I'm going to go to a color. We'll do a little blue. And I want to color in this heart. Wait a minute. Vector fill fills the whole background, which is nice if that's what you want to do, but I want to color in just my heart. So I'm going to go ahead and make that background white again. And now I'm going to do it right. What I have to do if I want to fill in that section is I have to change this paintbrush or this paint bucket. When I click on it, I have to change it to the option underneath that says pixel fill. Now look at the difference. I can change my color to whatever I want, but now if I click inside that heart, it only fills inside the heart. Pretty nice. Now, if you're drawing your own picture, there's one thing you do have to be careful of. If I had left a little open space in the line, that wouldn't hold my color. When I click it, it would fill the whole background too. But if you have a totally closed up shape like I do, you can use pixel fill to fill it in. But there's more. You can also kind of create your own coloring book. So I've got in another tab here, I already searched in Google Images for a paint palette. And these are pretty cool pictures, definitely colorful, but I would actually rather have a black and white one, like a line drawing. So I don't know if you know this trick in Google Images, but I'm going to go to this word right here that says Tools and click on it. And then there's lots of options, but I want to go to the selector that says Type. When I click on Type, I'm going to choose line drawing, and look, it changes them to only black and white line drawings. Now, I already have one saved because remember, I have that problem when I'm recording a video, can't save anything. But remember, on your Chromebook, you click it with 2 fingers and click Save Image As. Okay, but I've already got one ready to go. So I'm going to go back to Sketchpad and click on the emoji and click on Load Your Own Image. And I'm going to go back to my recent files, and I've already saved a nice little black and white paint palette. Okay, now if I go back to my fill, my little paint bucket, now I can fill one section at a time. It's pretty cool, right? And I have to experiment with this a little bit more, but do you see this red Finish Editing button right here? I'm going to click on that before I move on to another section. Sometimes it seems to change the section I did already into my new color, but now I can go to a new color and I can click on a different section, and it doesn't just change that one to orange. So if you're having that trouble, to click on that red Finish Editing button at the bottom before you go to a new section. But that way you can create your own coloring book. It's pretty neat. So we've talked about loading your own image, and I've showed you how to change vector fill to pixel fill. I'll show you a couple more quick tools, and then I'll show you some problem solving. The thing about using Sketchpad, or really any digital art program, is you kind of have to experiment, and sometimes you run into some trouble. And so you may have to just figure it out. If you're doing something and it just doesn't seem to work, try to use the backspace button or open a new page, or sometimes I even just close Sketchpad and open it up again, and sometimes that works too. So I'm going to go to this new page here, and I would actually like to fill the background with black. You'll see why in a minute. Da-da-da. And I'm going to go back to my drawing tools. Remember, they're over here under the select arrow. Sometimes it changes to a different picture. It's not always a paintbrush, but I'm going to click on that paintbrush and click on its twin to get my drawing tools back, like spray paint and mirror brush, like we talked about before. But the one I want to show you today is called Stamp. And the reason is it actually has lots of different options, just like the clip art. But you may have noticed the clip art is, a lot of it is kind of cartoony, which isn't a bad thing. Nothing wrong with that at all. But if you want something a little bit more realistic, let me go back to Stamp here. I click on Stamp, and then underneath it, I already have a palm tree selected, but you might see something else. When I click on that, I get a whole different library, it's not the clip art, of all kinds of different pictures and shapes. And just like before, you can type in the box if you want to look for something specific. I can look for a tree. I did a palm tree before, but I'll do this tree. And now, when I click on it, oops, it didn't show up. And you know why? I'm trying to stamp black on black. That's not going to work. Let me change my color to white. Da-da-da. And it makes a picture that's looking pretty small. So I'm going to use my slider and make it bigger so you can see it a little bit better. It's pretty cool. I liked this foot that I saw a minute ago when I was scrolling. See if we can find that again. Yeah. So remember, you've got these little sliders down here. Play around with those. If something isn't quite working right, you might need to change one of those settings on the slider. But the reason Stamp is cool is when you looked at all these in the library, you might have thought, oh, that's boring. They're all the same color. They're all white. They're actually not. They're white because you can make them any color or pattern you want. That's a little different than clip art. So if I click on my color selector, I can choose one of these patterns or these color changing ones. And now when I stamp, it will have a color. Now, one thing I haven't totally problem solved is sometimes it makes it really small. I don't really want them to be that small, but even though I don't know the best solution yet, I do know one solution, which is I can go to the selector arrow, I can select the stamp I want, and I can drag it and make it much bigger. So if you're having that same problem, remember you can use the selector arrow to make things bigger. But I like the stamp tool because you can make them lots of different colors and patterns. And some of the stamps are abstract. It's not really a picture of anything, but it can be pretty cool to add to your art. This is just a, blob, but you can make some nice designs with things like that. So you can check out some of those abstract shapes too. So I think that's most of the things I wanted to show you. Let's look at one more real quick called line. Line is pretty nice if you're trying to get a totally straight line, really, really straight edges, because I have a hard time doing that with my mouse. So if you want to try out this line tool, I'm going to go ahead and get a new page instead of deleting all those things. Nah, I don't need to save that. And let's give it a black background again. I liked how that looked. Now, when I go to the line tool, I click one time and it starts to make this perfectly straight line. So if I click a second time, it stamps that line down on the canvas and it lets me keep going. So I can build any sort of geometric shape, with straight lines and edges. And when I decide I'm done, because I could just keep on going forever, I have to take my last section and overlap where I started. And when it turns to green and a little option pops up, not there, but whoop, like that says close path. Now I can click on it and it makes a finished shape. So if you're trying to make something with really, really straight lines, you might like using that too. And just remember, if I want to move that around, I have to go to the selector tool. Now I can pick it up. I could rotate it. I can make it bigger or smaller, things like that. All right. Now I want to show you just a couple of problem-solving things. This may have already happened to you, and there may be other problems I'm not even thinking about that might happen to you, but these are some common questions people ask. The first one is this undo button. I know it seems like it should work, but I think on our Chromebooks, it just doesn't. If you're trying to click the undo button and it's not working, I think you probably should just use the selector button to delete things. Another problem that people run into, let's change to the paintbrush, making a picture. So I don't know if you've noticed, but underneath the color selector is this little box that says normal. Well, you can change the way the colors look on the screen. There's lots of options, but the problem with some of them is it actually doesn't do anything or might not look like it's doing anything. So if you're trying to draw something and you can't figure out why in the world it's not working, check that this box says normal. I'm not saying that you can't experiment with some of them. Some of them may do some pretty cool things depending on what you have on your screen, but if it's not working the way you want, select normal, and that might solve the problem for you, okay? The other thing I want to point out to you is notice how these boxes right here, pretty much the whole time we've been using it, this is a drop of paint with a slash through it, and this says 100%. What you're experimenting with is the inside and outside of the shape that you're drawing with. If you want to experiment with it, you go for it. You can change these numbers, you can click and unclick that box, but if you're having trouble and you can't get something to work right, go back and make it match the way this looks right now. The way you would do that would be you would make sure that you click on that paint drop. You want it to have a slash through the drop, and you want this one to say 100%. Okay? So if I change that, I'll show you what it looks like. I could choose a different color or pattern, and you see when I draw, it does do this pretty cool effect, but if that's not what you want it to do, it can be pretty frustrating. So I'm going to fix it. I'm going to go back to what I want it to look like by clicking that drop to make it 0 and making sure that it's 100%. All right,